let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and the culture. It's WallBuilders Live, where we're talking about today's hottest topics on policy and faith and the culture and everything that affects your life, your family, your backyard, your business, your church, you name it, all of it. The Bible has something to say about it, and the Constitution has something to say about it, and history has something to say about it. So everything we look at is from a biblical, historical, and constitutional perspective, and that's the approach we take here at WallBuilders Live. Now, you can find out more about us at our website, wallbuilderslive.com. That's where you can learn about us, the hosts. I'm Rick Green. I'm a former Texas legislator and America's Constitution coach. David Barton is America's premier historian and our founder at WallBuilders. And Tim Barton's a national speaker and pastor and president of WallBuilders. Get more information there at wallbuilderslive.com. And while you're there, please consider making that one-time or monthly contribution. We're able to bring this truth to you on a daily basis because of donors just like yourself. So thanks so much for coming alongside us, locking shields with us, partnering with us, being a part of the solution. Those dollars matter. That's what fuels the program. That's what fuels the ability to get to more people, to reach more people. And it's just a great way for you to be a part of it. You know, the founders gave their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. We're not asking you to give all of your fortune. If you decide you want to do that, that's totally okay. But we're just asking you to donate a little bit, maybe $5 a month, maybe $500 a month, whatever you can do. We greatly appreciate your support in coming alongside us. Another way you can help is to actually share the program. Actually get the links off the website or off of social media. Make sure you're signed up on our various social media accounts, and then share that with your friends and family. That makes you a force multiplier. As you well know, if you're listening to this program, it is hard to find truth out there right now. Most of the major media is part of the lie. I mean, they just continue to be deceptive and leave out the truth, tell one side of the story. It's all so slanted, and so it's hard to find that truth. You can help us get truth in the hands of more Americans by sharing these programs. Very easy to do. Go to wallbuilderslive.com today and do that. We're going to take our first break of the day a little early today because when we come back, we have Rob McCoy with us, Pastor Rob McCoy. From Thousand Oaks, California. The Godspeak Calvary Chapel out there is just, I believe, one of the most important churches in America, leading the way. We watch Rob's sermons in our home all the time. Thrilled to have Pastor Rob McCoy back with us from California. I jokingly say behind enemy lines. I shouldn't say that. You're still God's country. You're still America. And right. With great patriots like you, we're going to win it back eventually. So anyway, Rob, good to have you back, brother.
Thanks, Rick. You bless me more than tongue can tell.
Well, I bet it sometimes feels like you're behind enemy lines with all that's been going on, but you guys have stood firm, man. I've been telling people all over the country, watch Rob McCoy on Sundays. Y'all just continue to bless us, and of course, Vintage McCoy and your weekly talks as well, but your Sunday services, man, just so good, so much truth, so powerful. Just love the way you bring God's word to life, and I think... apparently you guys have some news for us. What's been going on with the city, the county, everybody else coming after you guys for opening up?
Well, so this was breaking news. The County Board of Supervisors here in Ventura County dismissed their lawsuit against Godspeak Calvary Chapel.
All right.
Yeah, so
dismissed.
That's good. But the what they did for immediate release was. Now, we have a countersuit against them, and we're in the discovery phase, and we've asked for quite a few documents, and we gave them time because they said they need an extension, and we've got our court date scheduled for July, at least to assess it, and now they're going to have to give proof for why they would quarantine the abused with the abusers, and why they would shutter our schools, and why 65% of our restaurants in our county will never reopen because of their actions. And you don't get a mulligan on this one. You can't just say, oh, you know what, we're going to dismiss the lawsuit. And the press release, you want me to read it, Rick?
Yeah, man, go for it.
So Board of Supervisors dismisses lawsuit against Godspeak Calvary Chapel. Reporting out from closed session deliberation, the County of Ventura's Board of Supervisors has issued a joint statement regarding a lawsuit against Godspeak Calvary Chapel. The Board of Supervisors has unanimously voted to dismiss the lawsuit against Godspeak Calvary Chapel. The lawsuit was a last resort to keep the public safe through adherence with state public health orders in the height of the pandemic to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Dismissing the lawsuit is an act of goodwill in acknowledgement of the loosening of indoor restrictions accompanying the county's move into the orange tier. We extend our deep appreciation and thanks to places of worship that have worked so hard and continue to follow the public health guidances of social distancing, wearing masks, and conducting services outdoors or virtually to keep the congregation safe from devastating impacts of COVID-19. Nearly 1,000 community members have lost their lives to COVID-19 in Ventura County. Working together, we can prevent further loss of life. Community members are urged to get tested for COVID-19, get vaccinated when possible, and continue adherence to all public health protocols to protect lives and help us move forward in fully reopening our schools and economy. And then they give the guidelines for houses of worship, and we're hearing reports that the governor is going to lift attendance restrictions on houses of worship. And it's not because he's a really nice guy. It's not because the county of Ventura is all of a sudden become really sweet. It's because they're losing lawsuits at the Supreme Court level, and they're ruling against them. And like I said earlier, we have a countersuit against the county. And so they're saying it's an act of goodwill. And with this act of goodwill, they kind of backslap us to say, well, we want to thank all the churches that did adhere to the health guidelines. And when they say nearly 1,000 people have died in Ventura County, with our discovery phase, what we're looking at is how many people died from COVID and how many people died with COVID. We have an increase in population in America every year, so there's been an increase in deaths, but the percentage has remained the same. So when we were before the judge and we had done a Freedom of Information Act, at the time that I was heard before the judge, there was a little over 100 deaths in our county attributed to COVID. And when we did our homework and got the Freedom of Information Act, we came to understand that only 2 people in the entire county had died from COVID. The others died with it. For example, a young man died of a fentanyl overdose, but he had COVID, so they called it a COVID death.
Wow.
Car accident, crushed lungs, positive for COVID death. These numbers they've used...
2% of the deaths that they said were COVID deaths, 2% were from COVID, 98%, this was back when it was 100, 98% were, they just happened to have COVID while dying of a car wreck or fentanyl overdose and other things.
Exactly. And so they use those numbers to justify the violation of our First Amendment, and, that's bad in and of itself. But in our county, they violated the Fifth Amendment where they have shuttered businesses and they haven't remunerated the losses that these business owners have incurred.
That's right.
And they've been fining them, and they dropped the lawsuits against them because in this discovery phase, and I put it this way to a reporter. I said the county supervisors were playing poker with taxpayer money, and they tried bluffing by raising big, and now when it's time to show their cards, they fold. Our countersuit is in the discovery phase, and they don't want to go there. Had they apologized, we too would have probably dropped our case. They didn't apologize, but instead in their statement of goodwill, it was just another slap in the face to us, and they took no responsibility for ruining people's lives in our county. And they've pitted people against one another between essential and non-essential. They've devastated our economy. They've closed houses of worship. They've threatened to fine us and imprison us. This is tyranny at its worst.
Yep.
And I got a call from that reporter, and they said, is your church sponsoring the recall effort of the county supervisor who headed this up? And I said to the reporter, I said, the very first time I've ever heard of the recall effort against that supervisor was right now from you. And it may be strange to you and may be shocking to you, but there are others in this county who are dissatisfied with the way that they've been operating. And I was in North Carolina. I came back last night and then had to hustle down to Oxnard in our county because I was asked to speak at an event called Brave. It's called Brave Coalition. And it's all of the businesses in Ventura County who have resisted and contended with the tyranny by leaving their places of business open, testimony after testimony. And they're the ones who are moving forward with this recall effort. And this is what touched me, Rick. They asked me to be the keynote. I didn't even know they really existed. And there's a fellow named Matt, and he's the one who heads it up. He owns a restaurant. And he introduces me, and he can't even get the words out of his mouth, and he starts crying.
Wow.
And he says, I've never been to church a day in my life. And the first time I came to church was because people said that you were defying the county, and I wanted to see what was going on. And then someone told you I was there, and you had me stand up, and all these people became my friends. And then you gave me a check for $2,500.
Wow.
He said, usually I heard you go to church and they take money from you.
That's right.
And he just said,
wow,
it's because of Godspeak we did what we did. And then 4 other business owners said the same thing, and none of them were churchgoers. And I'll tell you 2 stories, and then I'll stop talking because I'm a preacher. I do that.
No, this is so good. Keep going.
So this woman, her name's Barbara. She owns the pizza cookery. She and her husband, her father survived the Nazi concentration camp. She's been Jewish her whole life. She's been in the front row with her husband every Sunday for 7 Sundays since we started to support her business. And she came up this Sunday for prayer. And I prayed with her. And then another couple, I'll leave the last names out, but it was Judy and Jerry. Jerry comes up to me. He's 85 years young. He says, I married my wife, and she converted to Judaism. And I know her. She's a go-getter. I mean, she's tenacious. And he said, my wife converted to Judaism. We've been married over 60 years. He said she came because she knew that you were contending with the tyranny, and she was impressed by it, so she started going to your church. And then when you read the Bible, if someone doesn't have one, you pass one out. And then you said she could keep it, and she did, and she snuck it home because she didn't want me to know that she had it. And I found it. And Judy's smiling, and he said, I found it. And it took me 6 weeks, but I read it cover to cover. And I started going to church with her. And for 84 years of my life, I've been Jewish. And at 85, I'm now a follower of Jesus Christ. And
wow.
so is my wife. And they were both crying.
Mm. What the enemy means for evil,
yep,
God turns to good over and over again. I hear that coming from your church, from your community over and over again, because you guys have refused to give in and to constantly stand for righteousness, to stand on truth, to demand truth and not the lies, and not to live by lies, and not be simple-minded and think that you're loving people by participating in a lie. I mean, y'all have set the example in so many things. I mean, of course, even those stories, the anecdotal stories, I know those are just examples of many. But even what is coming out of this lawsuit, Rob, I mean, as you were describing that, I could only think all over the country, the same erroneous, deceptive numbers and figuring, as you know, it's like liars can figure and figures can lie, right? And they've been doing an awful lot of that all over the country, and so few people are calling them on it. So you're the church, and you're having to step up and be the one to call them on it. And so what they meant for evil and going after you guys, I believe God's using that, and I know you do as well, for good, because you're exposing the lies. 2% of what they claimed was death from COVID turned out to be death from COVID, and the rest death with COVID, which is actually the explanation for the 500,000 number they use all the time. Rob, stay with me, brother. We got to take a quick break, folks. We'll be right back. You're listening to WallBuilders Live. Have you noticed the vacuum of leadership in America? We're looking around for leaders of principle to step up, and too often, no one is there. God is raising up a generation of young leaders with a passion for impacting the world around them. They're crying out for the mentorship and leadership training they need. Patriot Academy was created to meet that need. Patriot Academy graduates now serve in state capitals around America, in the halls of Congress, in business, in the film industry, in the pulpit, and every area of the culture. They're leading effectively and impacting the world around them. Patriot Academy is now expanding across the nation, and now's your chance to experience this life-changing week that trains champions to change the world. Visit patriotacademy.com for dates and locations. Our core program is still for young leaders 16 to 25 years old, but we also now have a citizen track for adults. So visit the website today to learn more. Help us fill the void of leadership in America. Join us in training champions to change the world at patriotacademy.com. We're back here on WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us. Rob McCoy, our special guest, pastor at Godspeak Calvary Chapel in Thousand Oaks, California. And Pastor Rob, so back to what we were talking about before the break, this whole thing of dying with COVID or dying from COVID, and the numbers just being completely deceptive the way that they've reported it all this time.
Well, I've been reading a fascinating book, and I'm going to throw a curveball, and some of your listeners will probably, take issue with me. And
oh, don't worry. I'll forward you all the hate mails. It just go in your big pile that you've got.
Take a number.
Yeah. So
there's an author. His name is James Lindsay, and he wrote a book called Cynical Theory, and it's an unbelievable academic work on dissecting critical race theory and critical theory that has permeated. This is a cancer that has infused itself in every vestige of American culture. And he breaks it down and goes through the history of where it came from. And he's an amazing scholar. And by admission, he says he's an atheist. And I was with him when he interviewed with Charlie Kirk. Sweetest guy you can imagine. Brilliant. And he said, I've been liberal my whole life, but I voted for Trump. And he said, I cannot allow what's taking place in academia with this critical theory. He said the tenets of critical theory is that they no longer embrace the Enlightenment thinkers, nor do they look at the scientific method or the ability to believe that there is absolute truth. And he said, I may be an atheist, but I know that there is truth, that there is absolute truth. How it got here, who has it, and it's funny because Charlie would say, well, Jesus said, I'm the way and the truth. And they would have some fun with it. So I don't really look at him as an atheist as much as I look at him as an agnostic, because he sees an order in the universe. And you cannot dismiss, because truth is knowable. And so when they bring critical race theory, which died out, the postmodernists died out in the 90s, but they've infused it into these victim groups, LGBT, and they call it a race issue, and then they call about fat shaming. And every group that's alienated, that has called evil good, they are now justifying it by this critical race theory. And it's not based on truth. Their truth comes from intersectionality, which means these victim groups find their strength by political power. That's where the truth is. It's not discernible truth. It's not knowable truth. It's truth that we will inflict on you by political power. So when a doctor looks at a morbidly obese individual and says, you're going to kill yourself, this is unhealthy, they say that's fat shaming, and they sue him. And so we are in a battle for good and evil. And the secular progressive left is dominating the political arena. They've dominated corporations so that they're kowtowing to this critical theory, and everyone is being canceled, and they're telling us what we can and can't say, and the words are no longer true. So when our young people hear the word social justice, they're moved, and rightfully so, because there's injustices in society, and they want social justice.
Yeah, they want to be part of a righteous cause. It's understandable.
But for the critical race theorists, they are using the same term but playing a completely different game.
That's right.
Social justice to them is everything that's been designed by Enlightenment thinkers and the scientific method has favored the white man. So we no longer operate with mathematical principles or antiquated engineering philosophies, or I should say scientific understanding through the Enlightenment thinkers. We erase that. It's now what we say truth is. And this is devastating.
Oh, it's completely, that was one of the best descriptions I've heard of critical race theory and the danger of it, and how it actually flies in the face of even, Enlightenment type thinkers or anyone that considers themselves to even be a postmodern, as you said, even an atheist or an agnostic that at least still believes in scientific truth. It throws all of that out the window because it was supposedly, from the, elites that were supposedly white, and therefore no matter what they came up with, good or bad, is bad and thrown out. These kids are buying into it. Yeah,
they are, and they're passionately duped, and the secret is in this intersectionality where you find your power in your minority groups that are victims. So, one of the folks that would be high on the scale of political strength would be, for example, a black female lesbian pagan. Lowest on that totem pole of critical theory would be a white heterosexual male Christian. I mean, that's it. You aren't allowed to speak. You are systemically racist, and the entire system your people designed was to suppress us. And nowhere in the Bible does it talk about the color of one's skin. And here's what's fascinating. Critical race theory, they're not after me because I'm white. They're not after me because I'm heterosexual. They're not after me because I'm a male. They're after me because of God. They want to exchange the truth for a lie and worship the creature instead of the creator. And the black lesbian female is irrelevant. It's the pagan. I want you to confirm that my sin is legitimate. And you say, well, let's look at the scientific data. We don't. That's white man's work. But in reality, the gospel, there's neither Jew nor Greek, slave. We're one. And
right.
and the truth of the gospel, Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. So we're in a battle for truth, and the people who should be standing are the churches. And I'll leave you with this last thought. Constitutional republic, which we have, which is in danger of being lost because they're getting ready to apply fascism, which is just the term's been used so many times. Let's just say the best definition of fascism, according to Orwell, is it being a bully. So they're changing the semantics, the meaning of words, and there's no truth. So when Jethro says to Moses in Exodus 18, you will select from all the people able men, such as fear God, listen to this, men of truth, hating covetousness,
yes.
and place such over rulers over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. That's where you get a representative form of government, a republic, thousands, hundreds, fifties, tens, federal, state, county, local. And then not only were the Jews a republic, they were also a constitutional republic because Moses got the Constitution up on Mount Sinai, which is teach your children and put this in the center of your community. Moral law, then comes civil law. And 3 to 5 million Jews lived together for 40 years in the wilderness without a police force or a standing army. And this constitutional law we have protects the minority, but we must contend for truth. And our founders gave us the counselors to the king, which is we the people. If people are saying I'm violating Romans 13, they don't understand that the authority of Romans 13 in the constitutional republic is we the people.
That's right.
And that the elected representatives governed by our consent, and they're to pursue truth and stand upon truth. And when you look at this, and you see that we are we're contending, and we could possibly lose it. Our founders gave the authority to the people, pushed the government down to the people, and then they said, every king needs counselors, and a president needs a cabinet. And so we're going to give our sovereign in America a counselor and a cabinet by the First Amendment. The freedom of the press, the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, and the freedom to peaceably assemble for right of redress of grievances. And so the press is supposed to report the truth. The pulpits are to proclaim the truth. The people are to speak the truth. And then if the government tries to stifle it, we come after them. And it's our right and our duty, but the press is bought because of critical race theory. Truth is no longer the issue, it's power. And the pulpits, because all we want to do with this new return on investment mindset, looking at the church as a business, we want to keep butts in the seat. So we're going to capitulate, and we're going to yield to tyranny. And tyranny's not going to stop until we've been devoured. Churches aren't going to open anymore. Ours is exploding. We've grown 400%. People want leadership. And I'm going to tell all the pastors out there, open your church, take off your mask, and whatever things are true, start pursuing those, and be a son of Issachar, where you are educated in the issues of the day, so that you can shepherd your people, because they're being led into slavery, and you got work to do. And if you're in a church that's not open, find another church.
Amen.
Because your kids and your grandkids' futures depend on it.
Amen. Oh, no doubt about it. Everything you just said. I just want to exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Folks out there, listen, Godspeak.com. Godspeak.com. You can watch Rob's message every Sunday. You can watch his daily commentary as well. And Rob certainly did not ask me to do this. But listen, if you haven't been attending because your church isn't meeting or whatever other reason, you need to be sending your tithes to churches across the country and ministries across the country that are meeting the needs of the people in so many different ways. And Godspeak.com is at the top of that list. So go to that website today, watch some good truth, but donate and give to these guys to continue to do what they're doing. Rob, God bless you, brother. Keep up the great work. This was like a dissertation on civil liberty, biblical liberty, the state of the country, all in like 20 minutes. I don't know how you do it, but you just summarized it all. I really appreciate you, brother. Thanks for coming on today.
Rick, you bless me. I love you. You are wonderful. And to all the folks who tune into your program, they have found a place where they will grow in the love and the knowledge of Jesus Christ, and they will be equipped for what God wants to do with his people. So God bless you all out there. Thank you for what you do.
Amen. Amen. So good. Godspeak.com, folks. Go check it out today. Also visit WallBuildersLive.com. Thanks so much for listening today to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided forever.